so much. Alma,
Yeah,
30 March, class of 97.
83.
Well, thank you all so much for having me here today. I appreciate the opportunity to spend a little time speaking with you all about who I am and why I'm running for the office of District Attorney. My name is Tiffany Burks. Can you hear? Center. Can you hear me now? Okay, great. I'll just talk like this. My name is Tiffany Burks. I am running for the office of Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney. I have been a prosecutor since 1997. That's when I began my career in Fort Bend County, which is a county just south of Harrison County. My family is from Dallas. My mom still lives in Oakland, right across the street from Orlando. And so I wanted to get back to the area for family and honestly for faith. My church home is in Dallas County, Richard West Baptist Church. And so I came back to North Texas in 1999 and I began my career at the Tarrant County DA's office. I've worked in several divisions, just about all of them, throughout my 20-plus years service to the county. I've worked in misdemeanor, juvenile, felony. I worked in the gang unit for 7 years. I've worked with the gun grant for the Department of Justice, working on gun cases, specifically gun cases involving juveniles. And we know that's kind of a hot topic in light of what just happened in Mansfield last week. But I have a wealth of experience that I want to bring to the DA's office. And I'm going to tell you why I'm running. Our country has become very divided, very partisan in the last few years. And there is no place for that in our criminal justice system. And I've been seeing some partisanship decisions being made that are politically motivated, politically driven. And honestly, cases should be looked at individually on a case-by-case basis. And decisions should be made based on the facts and circumstances surrounding the case. And that's really important to me. Because over the years as a prosecutor, I've done that. I didn't just talk the talk, I walked the walk for over 20 years. And I've done so, we talk a lot about progressive prosecutors. I know that's a term that a lot of people have heard and used. But I've actually been a progressive prosecutor for 23 years. I've actually been the prosecutor in the courtroom that will get a murder case, look at it, and dismiss it if the evidence is not there. I've done that. I'm the prosecutor who, if a young individual, 17 or 18 years of age, who's never been in trouble with the law before, comes into the courtroom, I may ask them, provide me with a clean UA and I'll dismiss your case. And I've done that. I'm the prosecutor who has created her own diversion programs because I've looked at a case and determined that someone has a mental health issue, someone has a drug issue, and it was incumbent upon me to craft something that would...
Hold on, just check it out for the technical issue. Test. Test.
They were doing it freaking time.
What if you turn one off?
It's going to have to go live right now.
I can talk loud. Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay, because I picture it. I was going to say, I can talk loud. And I talk to juries, I have to talk loud sometimes. So, but what I was saying to you all is that it's important that we have prosecutors in the DA's office who are progressive in terms of thinking outside of the box. Not every person that comes through the criminal justice system needs to go to prison. Not every person that comes through the criminal justice system needs to go to jail. Some do. And when they have to be held accountable and that's where they have to go, that's what happens. But we have to really learn as prosecutors how to make accountability work for each individual. It's not cookie cutter. Everything shouldn't look the same. So that's why I'm running. I'm running for change in the DA's office. I'm running because people trust me in this community. Defense attorneys trust me, judges trust me, and other prosecutors trust me. I've been a mentor to many prosecutors in the office for years. They come to my office, it's an open door. When they need advice, when they need help, when they need, some people just come in my office because they're having issues and they just want to cry on my shoulder, and that's fine too. But that's what we need in the DA's office. We need someone who is a leader, which I have been. We need someone who is a mentor, which I have been and have continued to be. And we need someone who understands citizenship. In other words, we need someone who understands that the DA's office needs to work in collaboration with other organizations to make sure that our communities are working well, we are working well together, and that we're making a difference and a change in our community. So with that, I have some flyers I'd love to pass out to you. Do not vote for me just because I gave you a flyer today, okay? I mean that. I want people to be educated voters. You know, I go on Facebook from time to time and I see things written about me and they're not true. And I want you to go online and read it for yourself. Read about me for yourself. And I even have a place on my page where you can ask a question. If there's something about me that you don't know about and you want to know about, send me an email. I will answer you, okay? But it's really important to me that we get people in the office with experience who care about this community, and that is me. And I look forward to working as your next elected district attorney in Tarrant County. I'm on the Democratic primary. Someone asked me that. I was actually asked by several people to run as a Republican. I'm not running as a Republican because I'm not a Republican. Okay, I'm running as a Democrat because those are where my values lie. So I'm asking for you to vote for me in the primary, the Democratic primary for Tarrant County Criminal District Attorney. Thank you so much for the opportunity to speak with you all. Hope you enjoy your work.
Are there any questions? Up here?
No, I wanted to ask you a quick question. Do you speak Spanish?
I speak some Spanish. I'm not fluent, but I can understand some Spanish, and I can speak some Spanish.
Do you know the demographics of Hispanics in Tarrant County?
Do I know the demographics in terms of where the percentage?
How many people?
I don't know the exact number, no, I do not. But I know that the demographics is, I know that there are more Hispanics in Tarrant County than there are African Americans right now. I do know that, but I can't tell you the percentage.
I think we're the majority.
Yes, I can't tell you the percentage, but I know that you outnumber African Americans now. I know that for a fact.
Because I think it's very important.
Go ahead, the back.
Yes.
Over there, back over here, and then over here.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, Minister John, just a person now, but we need somebody that's going to be there to be checking up so they can be accountable for the things they're doing. Because a lot of Hispanics and a lot of Black Americans are being locked up and persecuted, sometimes for things they don't even do. And because they don't take the time or they can't pronounce the last name or something, they just say, let's lock up this guy, let's lock up that guy. We need somebody that's going to be strong to make sure that when they try to do something against injustice, they can stand up and make sure that there's accountability in the police force, in the DA, and in the detectives, so that way things can run smooth.
Absolutely. And if you will go on my website, you will see my platform. That's one of the things that I talk about. Accountability for police officers. We need to support our police officers because they are doing a public service for our community. But when there are police officers who are violating the law, they need to be held accountable for it just like everyone else. If you go on my platform, you can read more about that. I totally agree. I think you have.
I have two quick questions. Number one, you said that your values lie with the Democratic Party.
Tell me about 30 or something.
But your record belies that. You voted in every Republican primary except for two since 2006. So can you explain that? And then my second question is what do you believe is the core problem within our criminal legal system?
So to answer your first question, it's a very good question. I am a Democrat who moved into Tarrant County, which has always been and was a red county. And as a criminal justice practitioner, it is very important to me that there are judges and people on the bench who are the best and most qualified judges there are. So when I came into Tarrant County, there weren't any Democrats running for judges. They were running as Republicans. And so many of us in the criminal justice field would vote in the Republican Party because we wanted to have the best judges that there were on the bench, okay? That's why. That's why. And I won't apologize for that, because as a criminal justice practitioner, it was very important for me to have judges on the bench who would do the things that you all are talking about, who would hold people accountable, who were diverse, who understood the law, who would make recommendations that were in the best interest of our communities. And if we didn't have Democrats running, we had to choose someone in the Republican Party that we thought was the best, and I wanted my vote to count. So that's why. And your second question was related to...
What do you believe is the core problem with the criminal legal system?
There are several problems, I think, with the criminal legal system, but if I had to pick one right now, I'd say probably we need bail reform. There are a lot of people that are in custody because they're poor and they're indigent, and they can't afford to get out. Bail should never be punitive. The purpose of bail is to ensure that a person will come back to court during the time that they're supposed to come to court. And there are some aspects of bail that are for the protection of the public. But I think we do need bail reform. I think that's a really big issue across the country and in this county. If you look online right now on the Tarrant County website, you'll see how many people are currently sitting in jail. And you can look at the types of offenses that they're sitting in jail for. Possession of marijuana cases, theft cases, and we need reform in those areas because bail should not be punitive. People shouldn't be incarcerated for a crime. Sometimes people have been in there longer than the sentence will allow. And that's unheard of.
My question, Ms. Burks, is do you think that the administration of justice system in Tarrant County, as well as in the state of Texas, is basically a system that does not work well, maybe even systemically discriminatory towards black and brown, given that we have 80% of the penitentiary inmates are all black and brown? Do you think there's something wrong with that system?
Yes, and so let me say this, and I preach this, I've been preaching this for 20 years. The criminal justice system is only as good as the people who are working in it. I'm going to say that one more time because I think it's really important. The criminal justice system is only as important, it only works as well as the people who are in it, okay? That's why when I go around and talk to people about diversity, it's important for people of color, our black and brown neighbors, to be part of the criminal justice system and to be in the DA's office. When I started in the DA's office in 1997, there were hardly any black and brown individuals there, okay? We need that diversity in the DA's office because we bring unique perspectives to the DA's office that some people may not understand. I'll give you a perfect example. When the Mansfield shooting happened this week, there were people online talking about, well, if people had two parents in the home, that wouldn't be a problem. So I want you to just think about that for a minute. Not everybody has a two-family home, for whatever the reason, whether their family member is deceased, whether their family member is incarcerated. And so what we have to understand is that individuals are all different. And we bring a different perspective to the DA's office, people of color do. And we need that perspective in the DA's office. So in answering your question, I'll say this. The office will only run as well as the people who are in it. And so we need diversity in the office. We need people who understand that incarceration and conviction is not the only solution. We need people that believe that. And honestly, it can be people of any color, but we certainly need diversity in the DA's office. We need diversity on our benches. If you look at Tarrant County right now, we have one African American judge across 20 benches. One. We have one Hispanic judge, Judge Gonzalez, out of 20 benches. Just one. We need diversity across the board in the DA's office, on our benches, and in our legislatures. Want to answer your question?
Well, I guess to a point, because I know We have other issues to deal with, which also includes, if you look at the research, the disparity in sentencing practices is a good example of how somebody that's white and perhaps that has the financial resources, the way that they're trying to sentence versus those that are black and brown. And there's a great disparity there, which is a systemic failure, in my opinion.
It is.
And
the only way that
it goes on and on and on.
Right, and so and to address that, let me say this. Leadership matters as well, okay? When you have someone leading a department who thinks the way you think, that mindset will trickle down through the DA's office. That is my mindset. My mindset is that not every case should be handled the same way, and that everyone should be afforded the protections of the government and the Constitution, white, black, brown, red, whatever. That is my mentality. My mantra has always been to do the right thing for the right reasons all the time. And if you have ADAs working in an office where they're doing that, you will see a difference. I'm running on a platform of restoring public service in our DA's office to rebuild public trust. So if we can restore the public service aspect of our jobs in the DA's office, I firmly believe that we will begin to rebuild the public's trust in the criminal justice system. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to happen overnight, but it can happen one step at a time, one case at a time.
So I guess, should we call it, instead of the administration of justice, perhaps the new name should be the administration of injustice?
I've heard that term before, but I don't think that it should be called the administration of injustice.
I'm just kidding, of course.
I know you are. I really do believe that the system is only as good as the people who are working in it. And what I'm telling you is I'm going to make sure there are people in the system who are working. There's been a hand in the back. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome.
My question is that as LULAC local president, we've been working with other community groups to try to set up police oversight committee. And so we hope that they will be able to get it done completely soon. So my question to you is, how would you be open to work with such committee and cases that may involve?
Absolutely. And I will tell you that over the years, I have built a really good relationship with law enforcement. Fort Worth Police Department, Arlington Police Department, many of the police departments. And because I have a good relationship with them, I will be able to work across the aisle with them on getting things done. I will share this with you though. One of the things that I think is critical between police and community is the community policing model. It really does work. I'll give you an example. Butler Housing, it's no longer Butler Housing anymore. But back in 2007, 2008, when I was in the gang unit, there was a lot of gang activity and a lot of violent crime going on in Butler Housing. The Fort Worth Police Department put 2 officers over in Butler Housing, not as a show of force, but as a show of building community relationships partnering between police officers and citizens. And I can tell you firsthand, because I was in the unit at the time, that there was a decrease in the amount of crime in Butler Housing. Because police officers began to forge relationships with the citizens that lived in the housing project. They knew them. They became supporters for them. They became people that they can talk to and consult with. And it was honestly a really beautiful thing to see the police departments working with the community in that way. So yes to your question, and yes, I believe we need more community policing in our neighborhoods so that citizens aren't afraid of police officers and police officers aren't afraid of citizens.
Good morning. My name is Robert Ceballos, and I'm an administrator at Dallas ISD at a public school. So my question is, and I'd like to thank you for your public service and everybody that's here. My question stems from, I hear about the community, the trust, and building those relationships. I think my concern for the Latino community is my school is 93% Hispanic. And our parents, there's a distrust in the community with law enforcement. And so looking over the summer with voting and the restrictions and Congress leaving, I fear that our citizens are afraid to go to the booths and vote. So on that aspect, how do we rebuild that trust? Because there's a lot of great leadership out there, but our Hispanic community is afraid to go and vote because of the restrictions, mainly our immigration. I think last year at a public school, we had a police officer go arresting a parent after they dropped their kids off at the campus. And so with those kind of things, how do we make our citizens here in Tarrant County hear all these great things and then show up to vote? Because without their vote, we may be the majority, but the majority is not showing up for the vote.
I think we do things just like what we're doing here at Chorizo and Menudo. I think that you bring people in from outside in the community to come in and speak with you all about issues that are affecting you every day. And then when we meet here, we don't stop here. We then go out into the community and we talk to people and meet with them about their issues as well. I mean, the only way that we're really going to bridge the gap that you're talking about is by communicating with one another. That's the only way that that's going to happen. And when we talk about police oversight, one of the things that we can do is we can have conversations with police chiefs and police officers about how we are treating Black and brown citizens in our county and how we're treating them perhaps differently than we do white Americans in our county. So a lot of this, I think, has to do with communication, and it starts in places like this. But I don't think it can stop here. I think we have to continue the communication out into the neighborhoods where people live. And then I think we have to build a relationship with the police departments so that we can make sure that they understand the fears that are in the community and that they're not doing things to exacerbate those fears. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question?
So we know here in Tarrant County, the Sheriff's Department has a voluntary agreement with ICE, and it's called 287G, that really puts our community, Black and brown, really people of color, immigrants at risk and in fear on a lot of different levels. And it's a voluntary agreement. So my question to you, if you become the next DA, is what will be your relationship with ICE? Will you cooperate with ICE? And how will you, what will be your relationship or the way that you deal with immigration, with undocumented people who, when they come into contact with the system, they're treated unfairly on a lot of different levels that I'm sure that you're aware of. What is going to be your relationship and the way that you deal with that?
I don't agree with the proposition that we should have any type of voluntary relationship with ICE. I disagree with that. I'll give you a perfect example of a case that I had once where a young man was a witness to a murder case that happened over on Riverside. And the police went out to speak with him, and he told them that he didn't know anything about the case. Well, the police officer did not believe him. And so because he knew that this young man, who was only 18 years of age, had been in the country since he was 6 months old and was considered illegal, he contacted ICE on his own. The police officer, the detective, contacted ICE and said, this individual is here and he's in the country illegally. ICE picked up that young man at the age of 18 and took him to a deportation facility in Dallas, right off 35, and then proceeded to deport him to Mexico. I met with that young man, and it had a lasting effect on me, because what that young man said to me while he was crying was that, I can't speak Spanish. I don't have any family in Mexico. They're sending me back to Mexico. I'm 18 years old. I've been here since I was 6 months old. They're sending me back to a country where I know no one, I don't speak the language, I don't know what to do. We did our very best, myself and Juan De Leon, who I think has been to some of these Chorizo and Menudos. He was an investigator in the DA's office. We did everything we could to prevent that from happening. but to no avail. He was deported to Mexico at 18. And there are stories like that all over Tarrant County, and those are stories that should not be happening, okay? So I will not be working with ICE in any way to try to use my office or use the criminal justice system in a way to get people deported or immigrate them out of this country. I don't think that's right, and I'm not going to be a prosecutor or DA that's going to do that.
So I understand that, but my question is, when people who may be undocumented come into contact with the criminal legal system, they have a different consequences that may hit them.
Right.
What would you do? How would you address those?
In what regard, I think, is my question for you. Because when someone is undocumented and they hit the Tarrant County Jail, the ICE knows about it. And they put a hold or a detainer on them over in the Tarrant County Jail. Okay, so my question, when you say that, explain to me what exactly you're asking me.
That's my question to you, because
Okay.
I don't know. Is there something that the VA can do to mitigate what may be happening to people who are undocumented, who come into the system and who end up in intake with the VA's office?
There are some things that we can do to mitigate it. Number one, if you know anything about immigration law, and I know Garcia knows this, there are certain cases that if you are convicted of those cases, you are automatically going to be deported. Okay?
Any felony?
Any felony. And some cases involving family violence assaults, automatic deportation. What we have done, and what I have done personally, is I have reduced cases to offenses that are not deportable. And that's something that we can do in the DA's office. And that is something that I'm going to be asking our prosecutors to do in appropriate cases. So yes, to answer your question, there are things that we can do. Even if we dismiss a case, if ICE already has a hold on them in the sheriff's department, there's nothing I can do about that. That's the feds, and there's nothing I can do about that.
All right, thank you very much. That was a lot of questions.
Yes, thank you. I enjoyed it.
All right, our next speaker is running for Tarrant County Criminal Court Law number 6. She has been practicing 18 years as a domestic violence hotline attorney, advocating for victims of domestic violence. She worked with the legislature drafting criminal law bills and has worked as a trial attorney representing criminal defendants. And she is currently teaching criminal justice classes at Tarrant County College. She was running in the Democratic primary. Ebony Turner. Ms. Turner?
Buenos dias, me llamo Ebony Turner, and I am running to be your next judge of Tarrant County Criminal Court number 6, which is a family violence court. Tiffany is a hard act to follow, but I'm gonna try and tell you why I'm running. Like Mr. Garcia said, this is my 20th year practicing law. So I'm not currently an adjunct, and I've been an adjunct professor at TCC. I did that for 4 years in criminal justice. I have been a legislative attorney. I did that for 4 years in Austin. I was part of Ledge Council. I'm sure Representative Mesa is aware of Ledge Council and what they do. And I was actually there when we did this redistricting stuff in 2003 when the Dems had to flee to Ardmore. So I'm familiar with that kind of stuff that's going on in the legislature right now. I was a former Dallas County public defender. I see I've got some Dallas County folks in here. I was a Dallas County public defender representing indigent clients. I've represented thousands of persons charged with criminal justice cases. I did begin my career as a hotline attorney in Austin. That's what that was. That's what that reference was. So I've been both an advocate for victims of domestic violence as well as I've represented persons accused of assault family violence cases. So I've been on both sides of that coin, and I feel like I'm well versed in aspects of assault family violence. I'm running on a platform of effective judgments and efficient justice. And so effective judgments just means that, like Tiffany said, we're not handing out jail sentences just willy-nilly in my court. We're going to be looking at, it's going to be individualized, right? Because every person is not the same. And so it's going to be individualized. We're going to be looking at whether they have a mental health issue, whether if they have a disability. As a mom of a son with Down syndrome, I'm very sensitive to persons with disabilities. If they have a drug and alcohol addiction, we're going to be looking at that. Or, you know, if unfortunately, like the young man who was in my ISD, who was the shooter at Timberview on Wednesday, whether or not that person was being bullied. There's allegations of bullying for that young man. Those are the kinds of issues that we're going to be looking at for the persons that come into my court. I don't care if they have an immigration issue. That won't be an issue for a person in my court. I practice in front of a lot of Dallas County judges, and the immigration issue, and you know, majority of them are Democrats. That's never an issue. I represent undocumented persons all the time. It's not an issue as far as them, you know, being treated differently, except for, as like what Tiffany said, there are things that we can do, and there are things that I do as a defense attorney. It is incumbent upon me to go and talk to the prosecutor and say, hey, this person has an ICE hold. What are we going to do about them not being deported because of this offense? And then we will come up with a creative solution to make sure that person isn't deported to the extent we can. And I find that, like I said, that is incumbent upon me as a defense attorney to do that. I would continue those kinds of practices in my court. So a person with an undocumented person is not going to have an issue with me as the judge on the bench. I can assure you that, because I have worked tirelessly to keep them from being deported as a criminal defense attorney. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be looking at. And as far as my platform of efficient justice, as I stated, I was a Dallas County public defender. I had to handle thousands of cases. So I've handled thousands of cases, and I know how to. I know how to address large documents. So that is something I'll be able to do to handle this 50,000 case backlog or whatever it is in Tarrant County. That's because of the pandemic, in part because of the pandemic. I'm the perfect person to get that done because I've had to do it for the last several years. So those are the kinds of things that we're going to be doing in my court. Like I said, we're not just going to be handing out sentences of jail time without looking at the whole person, looking at their socioeconomic status. And then the other reason I'm running is because, like Tiffany said, there are 0 Democrats on the bench in Tarrant County. There are 0 African-American women on the benches in Tarrant County. So I'm running to bring some diversity, to bring some compassion back to the bench, some dignity back to the bench. The first time I was ever carded as an attorney was in court in Tarrant County. And I have to tell you, I was offended. I was offended because I'm like, I've been practicing law for over a decade, and I've never had to show my bar card, but I had to in Tarrant County. And so we need to start treating people, no matter why they're there, with respect. So if you're the defendant, if you're the attorney, if you're the juror, if you're, you know, whoever, whatever reason you're in my courtroom, you're going to be treated with dignity and respect, because I know what it's like to feel disrespected when I came into court. So again, those are the reasons why I am running. I can be followed on all the social media platforms at Ebony for Judge. That's pretty much it. Again, Tarrant County Criminal Court number 6. Vote all the way down the ballot. I need to remind you of that. For sure. Because the local elections, the ones that affect you from day to day, are at the bottom of the ballot. So the judge cases, judicial benches are all the way at the bottom. So please vote all the way down. And if there's any questions I can answer, I'll be happy to.
In case you hadn't mentioned it, it's an open seat.
It is an open seat. So there is a opponent on the Republican side, but the incumbent judge is retiring. Yes.
Same question. ¿Hablas español?
Sí, un poquito. It was my minor in college, actually.
Well, it's just that there's so many politicians that I've encountered in the past 65 years that always say un poquito. And, you know, they've been here for 40 years, 50 years. And it's very important that you speak Spanish to understand our culture.
Yes.
You know, because even though we're here in America, I was born and raised here. My abuelitos are from the valley, and they don't speak English in the valley a lot of times. Back in the 40s and 50s and 30s, it was only Spanish. When we came to Tarrant County, you got beat if you spoke Spanish. They beat you in school. So we learned real quick in the 60s and 70s, do not speak Spanish. It wasn't till college, but it wasn't till college that we realized that, yeah, you would get paddled. So in college, I realized that to be, you know, not be ashamed of your heritage, but to be proud. And so that's why there's so many politicians that I run into in my 65 years that do not speak Spanish, but they want our vote.
That's right. I'll say I'm probably understating my Spanish a little bit, because when it comes to my church, whenever we have our Christmas assistance program, they do call on me to be the Spanish translator. When I worked on the domestic violence hotline in Austin, I was also the Spanish translator. So I probably am understating it a little bit because I don't speak it as much as I should or would like to. And actually, that's where I made the best grades, honestly. I should have been a Spanish major because I have, if you look at my grades, my best grades were in Spanish. So that's what I should have been.
All right, any other questions?
Oh, yay, Tiffany answered them all.
All right, thank you very much.
Thank you for letting me.
All right, our next speaker was born and raised in Fort Worth. He attended TCU, where he graduated with a double major in political science and Spanish. He later got his master's degree from the University of Houston. He's a lifelong Democrat, and he is the chair of the Tarrant County Tejano Democrats. John Medrano.
Correction, I'm not the chair, I'm the treasurer. Our chair is Araceli Chavez. And I'm here to encourage all of you to join our newly formed chapter of Tarrant County Tejano Democrats. We had people such as Heather Buen and Araceli, and who's back over there, and Norma Garcia Lopez, that thought it was important for us to regain our voice, regain our footing here in Tarrant County. And so in a matter of probably 3 weeks, 2 weeks, we've established a new chapter, and we've got 60 members at this point. Hopefully there will be more of you joining our group. We encourage you to support our voice, support our people. One of the things that has occurred over the course of really a number of years, but more recently, is Latinos and people of color have been been attacked by the Republicans and the Governor Abbott. And that goes without saying. I mean, at every level, it seems like in government, we have had an issue. Redistricting, voting rights, reproductive rights. I mean, the Tejano Democrats local chapter also participated in the march last Saturday. Heather being one of them, Steve another. And it's just, we're just constantly under assault. And so I think it's vitally important for us to regain our footing. And just this morning I was reading an article about South Lake, of course, South Lake, where they're restricting the types of books that are being taught, and even instructors, even teachers are closing off their bookshelves. I don't know if you've seen it, you're shaking your head. On NBC News report earlier this morning. I mean, where does it end? And where do we get heard? It's important for us to get our people registered to vote. Not only registered to vote, but turn out in higher numbers, greater numbers than they have been. I mean, if we continue to let the Republicans run roughshod over our redistricting, over the Tarrant County voice, and Tarrant County's possibly going to have to lose a seat, in essence, for the Senate for Cal, State District 10. I mean, it's a problem. I mean, we're having to fight for every single thing. So anyway, I encourage you to join our organization. I've got some applications here. You can pay your state fees. You can go online and you can email us the receipt, and I have to read it. I have to put my glasses on because I don't see that well. But you can email us the receipt because we're going to go straight to the state party. Can you give me that email address? Okay, the email address for Tejano Dems, at gmail.com. You can pay your $10 fee, And the state party link is at state.tejanodemocrats.org. And that's where you can pay your dues. You email us the receipt, and you become a member, and hopefully an active member. So if you have any questions, I'll be sticking around. Heather's here, Steve's here, and we can answer some of your questions. And we look forward to you joining us. Thank you.
They're having a convention on the 28th and 29th in San Antonio at the end of the month.
There is a state convention in San Antonio on October 29th and 30th. We hope to have a voice there. That's the reason why we compiled this group. So we can have chapter representation in San Antonio. Steve is running, right?
No, so since I'm part of the SDDC, for Senate District 9, and then also helping found that chapter and part of Tejano Democrats automatically within the bylaws, I have an executive board seat. So just to tap on what John was saying, I did help make those phone calls to recruit people to join. The single statement I want to make sure that it's clear to everybody in this room is that the purpose of Tejano Democrats is to do what Domingo was just talking about. We do not see representation at any level of government that represents our population in Tarrant County. We don't see it across the state. That organization is intended to be partisan. It is intended to bring people together to teach, train, motivate, and educate voters in the public, as well as to bring people into the fold to have them represent us in ways that is not voting for the Republican who's also going to turn their back on us. We need partners that will stand shoulder to shoulder with us, protect our communities, protect our people through legislative acts. In order to do that, we need people to join, get into the fight, and help us out.
I think another example is in Fort Worth ISD, which there's a bond proposition coming up, and it's really important that we pass that proposition. We've got some signs back there in support of the proposition. It's a $1.5 billion bond package, and it is the largest in history, but it covers middle schools, it covers infrastructure, which are all vitally important to our neighborhoods. I mean, Fort Worth ISD is approximately 63% Latino. We have, out of 8 school board members, we have 3. None are in leadership positions. So why is that the case? That doesn't make any sense. And so it's important for us to pass that bond. It's important for us to unite, to have a voice. And I think now is the time, because if we don't do it, no one else is going to do it for us. And that's evident. And we've seen decades of this go on. And it's time that we speak up, stand up, and go to the polls, not just register to vote, but show up and help each other get that message across. Thank you.
The mayor was supposed to be here. We got a call yesterday at 4 o'clock that she had a family emergency, was not able to make it today. So hopefully we'll have her next month. So that was our last speaker. Are there any community announcements? Is David Guzman here? Oh, David, come on up. I apologize. Huh? Never mind. Oh, gotcha. Sorry about that. Our next speaker, we have one more, is David Umazor. He's a coordinator for the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. He's a second generation Honduran American, and he's a bilingual coordinator.
I appreciate it. It's good to be here. So before I introduce our foundation, a little bit about myself. So I'm half American and half Hondureño. And so just to go ahead and jump ahead of your question, hablo español, pero a lo catracho. And so just so y'all, so I am half Honduran, half American, and our organization is called the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation. We offer suicide prevention, training, and education here in Tarrant County and our surrounding rural communities. Our organization was started in 2014, and it was started, after our namesake. It was named after Jordan Harris, and so she was this phenomenal person, a phenomenal student. She was graduated valedictorian from her high school at Richland High School in Burkeville ISD. She was a student athlete. She was a merit scholarship winner to the University of Michigan, and really was just a compassionate person. Spent a lot of her time serving other people, and really wanted that to be the aim of her life. And so, but she was the last person anybody thought would be struggling with her mental health. In her final year of college, she was diagnosed with severe depression, and it was only 4 months after that that she took her life. And so her parents, to honor her and her memory, they created the Jordan Elizabeth Harris Foundation with the mission in mind to eradicate suicide by, number one, funding depression research. So to date, we've donated close to $400,000 in depression research grants. We also want to create awareness through education. And so we do offer suicide prevention training and education, and that we're non-clinical, so we don't have clinicians on staff, we don't have therapists, but we do want to offer that training to any layperson. And so we also want to erase the stigma around mental health and suicide, because we know we can't really confront any issue of our day without actually talking about it, without first having that conversation. And so I appreciate the previous speakers talking about some of the things that we want to tackle in the political realm, because we can't actually do that stuff without first talking about it. And so when it comes to suicide prevention, it's the same way. We have to first be able to have that conversation to be able to prevent suicide. And then we want to provide hope to those who are struggling in silence. And so some of the things that we do, the reason we do those things is here in the United States, we have suicide is the 10th leading cause of death. But it's the second leading cause of death for those ages 15 to 24, or to 34, sorry. But here in our area, so Cook Children's Hospital recently released data that the suicide right now is the leading cause of injury death in our area for those ages 5 years old, so that's kindergartners, to 17 years old. And we've had kids as young as 6 years old take their life. And so it's one of those things that we really want to be able to have that conversation, and especially in our Hispanic community. And so I started this job here in January, and so right now one of our biggest goals is to really bring out this messaging and bring out suicide prevention in the Latino community, because it's so important to have that conversation. So in the Hispanic community, a lot of times we really historically we've had some of the lowest suicide rates, so y'all know. But in the last few years, suicide in general nationwide has been dropping, but in the Latino community and in the African American community, it's been going up, and it keeps going up, and it's nearly doubled since 2008. And so not only that, but it's also the highest among those ages 20 to 24 and those who are born here. And so what the issue is a lot of times, and this in my opinion, is a lot of people, you have the conflict of identity and culture, because you're Latino, you're Hispanic, but you're also American. And so it's like this idea that you have this conflict on the inside. And so we have our 20 to 24-year-olds that are just starting their life, that are just going to college, that are just doing all these things, that really don't know what to do. And the only alternative they can come up with is to end their life. And so what we want to do is offer that training. And so one of the things that we do is we have a training called QPR, and it's question, persuade, and refer. And it's the 3 simple steps anybody can learn to save a life from suicide. And yes, it does sound like CPR, and that's on purpose, because it's CPR being an emergency intervention to save the life of someone who's not breathing and doesn't have a pulse. QPR is an emergency intervention for someone who's thinking about suicide. And so we also offer that in Spanish. And so it's in Spanish, it's preguntar, persuadir, referir. And that's for anybody who doubted that I was bilingual, by the way. But we really want to put these tools in the hands of our community, because it really takes all of us together to be able to save a life. And so that's what we want to do. So we offer, number one, we do offer that training in a variety of ways. And I have some brochures over here if you'd like to grab one and get some more information. But then we also have a school-based program called Hope Squad. And so we do, I know we have Hope Squads in Dallas ISD as well, but we serve primarily Tarrant County and here. And so we do have, Hope Squad is a peer-to-peer suicide prevention program in our schools where we give specialized training to our students to be able to keep track of their peers. We're not training anybody to be a counselor or a therapist, but we are training people to be a friend to those who need a friend. So that's the idea. That's our organization in a nutshell. And if you would like more information, again, I'm right there. We got bulletins or some brochures, and we'd love to schedule a training for you and your community. Are there any questions for me?
Yes, I have a question. Okay, I know this is a community outreach, and it's important
Is there any other ways to contact you or other people to maybe have a meeting, you know, and something that's, I know we're in a hurry.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I've had, you know, several young folk that I was able to talk them out of doing those things. So, and it hit home. It hit home because I had some relatives that have done that. So, with that being said, whenever you get a chance, whenever we're done, I'd like a card and from there. And yes, I'm glad you speak both languages. It's awesome. It's awesome.
Do you think that the suicide for the young Hispanics and Black students, do you think it has something to do with the issue of what's going on in the times of like Black Lives Matter and the border, you know, and us being conflicted, being Hispanic? When we were raised and they told you not to speak Spanish and to be ashamed to be Hispanic, our parents said, no hablas español, don't speak it, don't get in trouble. So we learned to be the American way, you know, in other words, English only, no Spanish TV, no nothing. Nowadays with social media and all this stuff, that the parents now, they're like, no, it's to heritage, to herencia, you know, so we want you to speak Spanish and watch Telemundo and Then they go to school and the kids are telling them, oh, you're Mexican or you're Black and you don't understand. So the conflict, like you're saying, it's there. And so again, when we were raised, we were taught, you know, and nowadays it's not like,
and the scars are still here with us.
but the bullying, like on social media, the bullying, you know, it's really easy to get on social media and then, oh, you're Mexican, you know, you're the problem, America's going down, or you're the Black Lives Matter, you're the problem. So that's why these kids, you know, they end their lives, you know, because they're conflicted. Their parents do this, and
And so I will say, so yeah, number one, I do have cards, and so I have, you can get a hold of me. I usually respond to my email real quick, or you can give me a call, however. So I do have that. And yes, there is one of the things that I do want to leave y'all with is one of the things that protects people from suicide is cultural pride. And so being able to be at an event where we're able to have break bread over menudo y chorizo, and we're able to celebrate in our own, like we're able to celebrate our culture whenever we, like today, this month is Hispanic Heritage Month, where we get to celebrate where we come from, what our heritage is, when we get to speak our own, cuando podemos hablar español, lo mismo, like it's the same, like we get to speak in our own language and really feel that kind of pride about ourselves and where we come from. That helps protect people from suicide, and it's actually one of the best ways to protect someone from a great way to protect someone from suicide. It's just that pride in culture and heritage. And so, yeah, that all that has to do with protecting somebody. So, yeah. If there's, yeah.
I work in New York City, and I'm saying New York for reach out. So when I go to the people that are suicidal, and I see a lot of Hispanics in New York, Puerto Rican, Dominicans and stuff, they're going through a lot of hard trials, and this 9/11 didn't help them at all. When it happened, I was there, I seen it, and but you know, the most important thing is that we try to reach out to help them. We do the best we can to do the communication so we can help them. It's not about a black thing or a brown thing or help my people or help those people, porque esto no es Chicano. But it's about helping the community and everybody in the community that needs that help. And we need somebody who's going to do the job to help every race and every color. I don't care what color you are. I care that you do your job and that you help the community. And if you help the Hispanics and the Blacks and the poor minorities, why any color? That's the most important thing, that we stand up for the community and help the people in the community so they can get up and get out of the situation. If they're hurt, that we're there as a voice to help them so they can get out of that situation and do a better life or get themselves together so they can be a productive system in the community.
And I agree. agree. So there's all of these things. So we can work on a systemic level. We can work on a community level. When it comes to suicide prevention, the way we train is on an individual level. And so when it comes to an individual level, it's coming alongside someone and just partnering with them and say, let's look for a different solution than ending your life. Let's try to find that other solution that's to better your life, right? Ultimately, when someone's thinking about suicide, they got a pain that they just want to end. They want that pain to end, and that's the solution they can come up with. So we would have come alongside them and help them find a different solution. So yeah.
And real quick, you know, I saw a lot of division in New York, Bronx, Manhattan, Spanish Harlem, Brooklyn. Everybody was segregated, and everybody had their own neighborhood. But when 9/11 hit, I see Puerto Ricans, white Americans, and blacks, everybody united, helping each other, trying, and helping people out of that rubbish. So you see, we need to unite together as an American, as a family, and help out the ones that can't speak for themselves. They say that the Hispanic people, they can't speak for themselves, I don't speak much English. Because we're there as Tejanos to help them so they can get out of the situation. They need papers filed, and here their friends help them. You know, because they are our people. This is just our birthplace. That's our culture. And we need to remember who we are, so that way we can help the people that need that help.
No.
I agree.
No, just walk on.
All right, thank you very much. Gracias. Okay.
Probably, but again, it's your account, right?
Bueno, buenos días. Good morning. And, okay, I'm not Tejana, I'm Mexicana, but I've been 20 years in Fort Worth. So believe me, I'm Fort Worthian. And this is a great segue. They just told you about the importance of heritage. I have to tell you, one of the things that people, since I came here, they told me, oh, you're so proud of being Mexican. One of the reasons I'm very proud is because I know my history. I know where I come from, and I can be in front of anybody, Anglo, whatever color, and I feel very proud. Do I have an accent? Yes. And guess what? That's my opening of conversation, because I cannot pronounce no, or I have to repeat myself because I say something and they're like, what? But you know what? That's what makes us special. Our culture as Latin Americans, not just Mexicans, I know we're more Mexican than anything, but as Latin Americans, we have a soul. We have a lot of things to be proud. I mean, you're enjoying Chorizo and Menudo, our food. And let me tell you something, everybody loves what we bring to the table. So one of the events and things that we're trying to do is Hispanic Heritage. You heard it last time. We have started to develop more events to celebrate Hispanic Heritage in Fort Worth. We're 35.1 Hispanics. And in the past, there were very few Hispanic events during Hispanic Heritage that were everywhere on the mainstream. So this year, we started with a Hispanic Heritage kickoff in the stockyards. I have to tell you, it was amazing after the cattle drive to see a group of charros, dancing horses, escaramuzas, and have an event at Cowpen Coliseum that is usually just rodeo and cowboys, but they learned the cowboy ways from the vaqueros. So, you know, having that imprint there is very important. But being able to influence organizations that are mainstream, like the Kimball Art Museum with Nuestro Kimball, that they're really doing efforts to reach out our community. The Botanic Garden is hosting 4 weekends of Hispanic events. This weekend, every day you have 2 to 3 Hispanic events happening. In the stockyards, you have the Vaquero Gallery. At Rosemary Theater, you have the Fort Worth Opera with Entre Amigos. Later on, you have Frida Mania at the Botanic Garden. And on October 30th, that's what I'm here to talk about, we're going to have a celebration of Day of the Dead. And this is a grassroots, there's no producer behind it that is trying to make money or something. This is just a group of organizations. The City of Fort Worth with Carlos Flores, the Hispanic Chamber, Artes de la Rosa, that they've been hosting a procession for 18 years. So we want to elevate and visit Fort Worth and the Latino police officers. You know, we want to elevate the event and we want to make it bigger, and we want to make it a forward event. So now is Dia de los Muertos in Forward. We're working very hard, and because we don't have a producer or a mega sponsor behind it, we're not as fast as we wanted. But we have brochures to pass out. Please check the website. We have the forms for you to sign off if you represent an organization. This is not a political event. This is to celebrate our heritage. And Day of the Dead, believe me, I think a lot of us have people that passed these past years. And it's our time to celebrate them. So we invite you to join us. If you can afford money, please become a sponsor. If you just want to come with your group and participate, please do. It's going to be here in the north side. It's not in downtown and it's not in the Stockyards. It's going to be just from Central to the Spring Hill Suite on Ellis, and we're going to finish at Marine Park with an event. There's going to be vaccinations. So I'm just inviting you to please tell your groups, join us. This is something done grassroots. So, my job now, I'm Hispanic Partnerships. So yes, I have an alter motive. I want you all to bring your Hispanic events to Forward, because that's the best way to show people that we're here. Let's bring conventions. Let's bring those national. Let's get some national attention here. So please join us. Have fun. Let's enjoy our traditions, and let's feel very proud of our heritage. We have so much to be proud, and believe me, our Tejanos tonight at the Botanic Garden is a Tejano band playing. So it is so much fun, and please help us. Support this event so they see us, and they see us everywhere, not just in certain places. Thank you so much. Again, soy Estela Martinez with Visit Forward.
So, let me show you something a little bit. Antes de que te vayas, regresa por favor. Estaba en Chicago ayer, y estaba en el barrio, y tenían banners all up and down the street. I was in Chicago speaking at the Illinois Hispanic Employees Association. But I was impressed that all the main streets in the barrio de Pilsen, they had El Dia de los Muertos banners all up and down. And it was part of the city that paid for it, okay? So we need to get the city to start investing in our cultura and cultural events. Over el 6 de septiembre, 5 de mayo, lo que sea.
Yes.
Okay? Or St. Charles Day.
I agree, but we need to start showing this grassroots. This grassroots event, if we start showing up, believe me, there's other people that they want to do the same thing with other motives. But if we show up, this is not like, it's for me to pocket money. This is for us to elevate the Rosemary Theater, to show, personally, I want to showcase people that between downtown and the Stockyards, guess what? There's the north side. And there's an amount of restaurants and places where people can visit. One thing I forgot to mention, we're inviting all the restaurants to be part of what we're calling ofrendas de muertos. So if you want to do an altar, una ofrenda, we're going to be promoting that, and from October 25th to November 2nd, we're inviting all the restaurants to participate. And yes, we need the city to invest more money, but we need to start showing that we care, because if we don't participate, we cannot make it. Believe me, I was able to get some money from Visit Forward, so we're going to have a float. It's our first one. I wanted to have 5 floats. Sorry, I couldn't afford it. But I have to tell you, our friends, African Americans, sometimes they're more organized and they can get things going. So what we need is be together. We don't need to be fighting. We just need to feel proud of who we are, what we're doing, and start showing our faces in all these places, because that's the way they're going to start giving us more money. And we have Carlos that he's pushing. And believe me, I would love to be able to plaster the entire area with Day of the Dead.
Let's see if I can get you 2 more floats. Okay? All right, there. If you haven't been to the State Fair of Texas, go to Mundo Latino, Mundo Hispano, huh? Mundo Latino at the Women's Building, and they have a big Dia de los Muertos event there. And some of the floats that we did at Dia de los Muertos March last year for the COVID, are there at that facility. So recommend, if you go to State Fair, go to Mundo Latino at the women's building.
They are called mojigangas, the big papel mache that walk in the march as they are presenting the altares and the ofrendas. You know, it's very nice. If you have an opportunity to go to the State Fair of Texas, please go to Mundo Latino, and of course you can get vaccinated if you haven't been vaccinated. I have to say this. And you get $20 in coupons. I mean, not much at the State Fair, but it's so muchísimas gracias.
All right, also we're going to let everybody know que están invitados to the LULAC Women's Conference. It's in New York City, November 12th, 13th. That's going to be in New York City. Go to LULAC.org si quieren ir, las mujeres, la conferencia de mujeres de LULAC in New York City, November 12th and 13th. Any other community announcements?